Good morning, everybody. It's Catherine Cooke here, leading business advisor and founder at The Engine. I thought it timely as we move to the new traffic light system that I get expert in mindfulness and wellness coach John Shackleton back on today with me, and Dharsh Nanayakkara, senior solicitor at Martelli McKegg, specialising in family law, to have a chat about the mood of Aucklanders and the wider community. There's no doubt there's been insurmountable stress from many families through this 100-plus day lockdown that came upon all of New Zealanders on August the 17th. Christmas is also up there as a major stressor, both financial and managing care for divided families. I'm going to start with you, John. How are you doing down in the south of Auckland there in Pukekohe?
Yeah, lovely, thank you. It's a gorgeous day today. As you would know, Catherine, I'm sort of semi-retired, but I'm not really. I do a bit of work every now and then. So I'm doing fantastic. Thank you very much. Very relaxed and happy today.
Awesome. I think I dragged you out of retirement. Wasn't that the reason you got
out? You did, actually. Kicking and screaming.
Oh, it wasn't that bad, but yes, it was. No. And Dharsh, good morning to you. How are you doing today? Did you have an awesome weekend?
Kia ora, Catherine. Yes, I did. It was a lovely weekend and enjoying the sunshine. So, yes, we're doing well. Work is completely... Sorry, we've got very, very busy at work, but yes, other than that, personally, it's all very good.
Awesome, Dharsh. Hey, look, it's great to have both of you here. I'm going to start with you, Dharsh, because we've had John on a few times. I just want to let the audience get to know you a little bit. So, specialising in family law is really challenging. I mean, I know myself, the challenges I've had in dealing with family law myself, going through a separation and the stress that goes with that. But for you as a senior solicitor, you're not just the average senior solicitor, you're very heart-centric, you care about your people. Tell us a little bit about Dharsh.
Okay, well, my background is part Sri Lankan and New Zealander, obviously. Grew up on the coast in Gisborne. Got into family law because I wanted to help people who were moving through emotional transition. I've always really been interested in the law, so emotional transition and law, family law sort of was what I was looking at. It's a great area because it challenges not just your intellectual intelligence, but it's your emotional IQ, the emotional IQ component as well. So yeah, that's what drew me into family. And I studied in Auckland, worked 5 years in Gisborne, then did another 5 years in Auckland, then took a big gap where I raised a family and had a sick husband, and lots of things happened in between, and then came back to Martelli McKegg, and I've done just over 13 years of law now, so in family law.
Wow.
And I love it. It's a really satisfying area of the law, and you're right, the heart and the mind connect on this one. So yes, it's very heart-centric work.
Yeah, look, Dharsh, I take my hat off to all lawyers. Every time I go into the court just to support people through dispute tribunals, my knees start shaking and I get this overwhelming feeling of stress that just shudders through my body. So I can only imagine what it must feel like for you and your clients as you're about to go into a courtroom dealing with sometimes controversial matter or confrontational matter. It could be very, very challenging. So if I get this back...
It is, I guess, but...
No, that's okay, Dharsh. You carry on.
Sorry, Catherine. No, you carry on. Sorry, Catherine.
No, it's really hard trying to do it via Zoom. You carry on. Tell me about how you deal with that stress going into the courtroom.
I guess as family lawyers, we're used to it. Certainly for me, I'm more stressed doing this than I am going into a family court. There's a formula you follow, there's rules of law, and it's actually, for a lawyer, it's not that bad. But for your client, it's a huge issue. There's so many layers of stress at the moment for them. You've got the COVID environment, you've got the financial stress, you've got the difference in parenting strategies when you're all stuck together, you've got the uncertainty of health, and now we've got this horrible new Omicron on top of all of that. There's so much stress for them. And then when they have to go through this whole family court procedure, they're entering into courtrooms that most of these people have never set foot in a courtroom before. We are an inquisitorial system, which means we're not supposed to be adversarial. We're supposed to be more client-focused and mediatory in the way we work, and that's what we try to do. But at the end of the day, a court is a court. So yes, it's very, very difficult time for clients at the moment. And I've had.
I can only imagine. If I look at the stats, the New Zealand Police investigated over 165,000 family violence situations just last year in 2020, and that was advised by the New Zealand Police in 2020. I'm not seeing these numbers improve, so I can only imagine that the stats is actually putting a strangulation hold on the system, and obviously there must be people that you and your peers can't even touch right now. Would that be correct?
Definitely. The numbers are on the increase. Family lawyers are having to turn away clients because we just don't have capacity. For the first time ever, they had a meeting before we went into the last lockdown where the judges were saying, you know, if you haven't got capacity, then you do have to turn them away, because the worst thing you can do is take on extra work and not do a proper job for these clients that need you. So there's not enough judges. We've got a clogged up court system through no fault of the judges, because unfortunately COVID means you cannot hear cases. There were cases from last COVID that were put off to this COVID lockdown. Then lockdown happened this time around. And so now we've got this incredible backlog. And how do you say to a client that's waited almost a year for a hearing, sorry, but you're now pushed into next year? It's you talk about heartfelt and heart-centric law. It's a very, very difficult area at the moment for these people, and to give them that sort of news it's very difficult. But it is hard. It is what it is at the moment. Look, and then you've got a whole. Sorry.
I know that personally myself. Like, you know, I know that when I went through my separation, it took me about 30 phone calls before I found a lawyer that could pick me up, just because they were so busy. And that was back in 2014. It was absolutely devastating. And it was, you know, not just taxing on all the time spent, but just emotional taxing as well. Dharsh, if you don't mind, I might just cross over to John. John, obviously,
Sure.
in your work, you know, mindfulness is such an important thing in terms of actually confronting the situation, you know, confronting the role that you're playing and the behaviour that you're demonstrating in these situations. I mean, obviously, you must come across, you know, the anger, emotions, the you know, just all that kind of confrontational frustrations, all that coming out. That's elevated too for you, right?
It is. It's unfortunate, I think, these days, that the amount of stress there is around us in the world around us, that it is so easy for us to succumb to that and get involved in ego discussions with people where we're butting heads with them. And what I've personally found is that in those highly stressful situations, it's really easy to run headlong down this confrontation thing. Whereas what mindfulness teaches you to do is to relax and stand back from all that. And you're still present, you're still in the conversation, but you're not involved in an ego conversation. And as soon as you do that, you can actually have communication. It might be one way, because you might be the only person that's not in ego. If the other person's in ego, then they're very difficult to discuss things with anyway. But if I think about Dharsh's situation, she's almost the referee. It must be very difficult to hold yourself in a position where you're not one side. Well, you have to be. You're paid to be one side, I suppose. But to hold yourself in a position where you stay calm, because it would very easy with the other lawyer bashing their symbol. It's very easy for you to get involved and lose your calm and become quite intense with people, I would have thought.
Yeah, look, absolutely, and I guess really for people like Dharsh, it's you know, about understanding, you know, what the opposite side actually are looking for, because a lot of this arguing can go on for years unnecessarily. And you used the word ego, and a lot of people struggle with that, John. I know that from many people I talk to, when people see the word ego, they have this whole negativity
Mhm.
connotation around it. Do you want to just explain for the viewers that are watching this what you mean by ego? Because having an ego can be a good thing, right?
Well, we've all got one. Everybody has an ego. It's the view you have of yourself. Really, it's the picture you contain of you. It's not, funnily enough, it's not actually you. The you, this sounds a bit weird, but the you is the person observing the ego.
Mm.
But the ego takes over. I think what people misunderstand is the difference between ego and egotist. We all have an ego. We all are protecting ourselves from that perspective, but we don't all behave like Donald Trump, who was a massive egotist. And we sort of associate the words together. You know, just because we have an ego, and it's not, by the way, just men that have egos, women have them too. Just because we have an ego doesn't mean we have to shout about who we are and what we do. You can still be in ego without being loud and aggressive. Although that's not really understood by people these days. They think somebody working from their ego has to be aggressive, and that's not true.
Yeah, I'm glad that you actually clarified that, because I say to people, just to be very aware of their behaviour and own their role in the situation, because
Yeah.
it does, my mother used to say it always takes two. So, ever since as a child and we'd be arguing as children, it always took two. There was never one, it was both of you. Because even though you might have someone who started something, it's how you react to it, right?
Well, I think the key with all of this is to be able to sort of take the real you outside here and observe the ego you. And that's what the practice of mindfulness allows you to do, is to observe yourself. And then actually, when you're watching yourself as an egotist, which we all tend to go occasionally, but when we watch ourselves, that's quite funny. So if you're standing out here watching yourself behave like Donald Trump, I find it quite amusing when I do that. I haven't got a great deal of control over it initially, but as soon as it becomes amusing, I go, look at that idiot. And then I calm down. So the ability to stand outside and observe yourself, it's called disassociation. The ability to do that is something we have to train ourselves to do. Once we do it, arguments just don't seem to happen anymore for me. It's really, well, not very often, occasionally. I have two teenage boys, so they're bound.
Yeah, well, that can be challenging in itself. But look, Dharsh, I'm going to come back to you. Obviously we're talking about egos and confrontational behaviour. What type of issues are you seeing happening out there? I mean, obviously we've been in this lockdown now for over 100 plus days. Not the first lockdown that we've been in. It takes a toll on people to be constrained, and obviously in the work that you do, there's custody arrangements with children, across different borders. It can be very, very challenging. So what are you seeing happening out there, Dharsh, in the line of work that you're in, and family law, that you want to share with the viewers in terms of the stressors?
Sure, Catherine. Well, actually, there's several new areas that have arisen because of COVID. So we're getting scenarios where you've got separated families, so divided families, where one parent has an immunocompromised child, for instance, living with them as the primary caregiver. They're wanting to leave the Auckland area because of the COVID scenario. The other parent is saying no, because that will affect my contact. So that's a whole new area where people are saying COVID is a reason to take your child and move, right? The courts haven't there is no current reported decision on that, but the way the court will view it is they will look at what's in the best interest of this child in this particular scenario. So it would look at a variety of factors, including the issue of COVID and how it impacts on the specific child's health, for instance. Then you've got cases where you've got one parent who's also, so basically by law, if you are the parents of the child, you are the legal guardians of the children. So you have a right as legal guardians to make welfare decisions affecting that child. Welfare decisions are decisions that include medical treatment, religion, where the child lives, all those types of issues. So we've got scenarios now where one parent says, I'm pro-vaccination, let's vaccinate our 12-year-olds. The other parent is saying, no, I'm anti-vaccination, don't want to. So then you've got this dispute between guardians. If they can't agree, that also will end up in court. Again, there are no reported cases on it, but there are reported cases on immunisations, childhood immunisations. The courts generally tend to support the Ministry of Health guidelines, so you're likely to get the party who wants the vaccinations to succeed, unless there's specific reasons why the child can't be vaccinated. So there's this whole new area about vaccinations, about COVID affecting this specific child with immunocompromised needs. Then you've got issues to do with alert level boundaries. So the family court's given really clear guidelines that if you've got shared care within Auckland, then there's no reason why you can't move between households. That's a no-brainer, easy. And that's for any contact arrangements between separated parents. You can just continue as per what your agreement is or as per what the court order is. If you're moving from a level 3 Auckland to a level 2 area, then it gets a little bit messier in that you are supposed to abide by what the agreements are, what the court order is, but then you have to do testing before you can leave your area, and you've got to have, if you're vaccination age, you're supposed to be vaccinated as well. So there's requirements you have to have. But again, there's arguments about safety crossing borders over and above that as well. So you've got some clients that say, well, regardless of what the family court is saying and the directives of our chief family court judge, they're doing whatever they want to do for the benefit of their children because they have different notions of safety. So there's a whole level of stress and a whole level of case law that hasn't been tested yet. So we're moving into really unknown territory. And yes, we've got some guidance from previous case law, but nothing specifically to deal with this whole new area of boundaries and risks to children of COVID contraction and this new Omicron. All these sorts of issues are new issues which just add to our stress levels and add to the, I guess, to the uncertainty for parents in divided households. The family court, just on the issue of egos, John, family court is premised on the idea that we try and resolve as much as we can through mediation. We try and keep it non-adversarial. We try and keep it out of the courts. But the reality is when people are stressed, as they are at the moment, and coming up to Christmas, it's a whole different level of stress, mediations often don't work. So we're ending up in a very adversarial system, which is not supposed to be that way, but it's ended up that way because of the situation we find ourselves in, this unprecedented level of stress, really. So, yeah, the issues I'm seeing now that arise from COVID are new cases that are going to be testing the boundaries, really. So, yeah, I look forward to having some of these cases determined by the court so we can give certainty to some of our
pathway. Yeah,
exactly. There's a clearer pathway, but yeah, it's a very, very stressed, and when you talk about egotistical area, I think stress leads to that elevated sense of me and being, and yeah. So I think we're just in this space where people that were like this before are now like that, completely at odds.
When you get stressed, your own attention is drawn inward to look at yourself, to look this way, and to protect. It's a protection thing. When you're stressed, you look to protect, so you look inward at you, which is completely egotistical. When you're not stressed, it's very easy to look outward and help others.
Absolutely, John. Absolutely,
and thing to do. And you're dealing with people who are all this way. Look at me, help me. I'm the most important thing. And you can understand why they feel like that.
Mm-hmm. John, if you can actually just break that down, though, I mean, obviously, you know, as you would be well aware, and the work that you do with people, you know, the strategy for dealing with stress like that. I mean, obviously, you know, you get an email from the opposing lawyer, and I remember a wise person saying to me a very long time ago, put the email into, you know, a folder in your inbox, and then give yourself permission to look at it at a time when you're ready. You don't have to look at it straight away,
Absolutely.
because quite often we'll get the email. So if let's just say, you know, Dharsh is the opposing lawyer, and my lawyer sends me something, and I immediately want to gravitate towards it. You know, what are they saying now? You know, and if I can just put it in a folder and be prepared and ready to look at that particular time. And it's the same in business. I say it the same to business owners, is create folders to avoid the distraction of what you don't need to be distracted by.
I think you're right. You've got a situation here where time, because of the stress, time becomes really important to us, and we think we've got to deal with things now. And we don't. Generally, we don't. In fact, the best advice is not to deal with it now. Is actually to put it to the side, go away and do something else, go for a walk, go and build a shed or whatever, go and occupy your mind somewhere else. By the time you've come back, your subconscious will have figured out 3/4 of what the email is going to say anyway. So but it's that the inability to get out of your head, you know, to get away from that intense questioning all the time, which is what's causing all the problems with us today. It's causing even more stress. And this is shown by the enormous numbers of people that are struggling with sleep. Because they can't quieten this thing, they're not sleeping, which is putting even more stress on them. So, you know, you must be dealing with this all the time, Dash. You get people who not only are stressed, but they're not sleeping as well. And now they're grumpy and stressed, and now they come and see you and they expect you to go and shoot the opposition. It's a very, very difficult situation. Very difficult. The only thing I think we can do when we're dealing with stressed people like that is to be calm ourselves. That's the only choice we have, is to stay calm and quiet. And there is a little bit of transference of that to the other person. Eventually, not instantly, but eventually.
I guess, John, you just touched it on the head. You can only control yourself. You can't control everything else around you. So there's no point even starting to do that.
And yet, Catherine, if you ask people and they're honest, they'll tell you they're control freaks. But we don't control anything. I mean, we're nuts about it, but we actually have no control at all. You try controlling your cat, for example. I don't know if you've got cats, but you don't. I mean, I have trouble enough controlling me, let alone anything else. So
well, I guess the reality is, though, is that we can look at our own behaviour and we can look at controlling how we react.
Absolutely.
And it's how we react. And look, if you are tired and you are grumpy, then you need to take a look at, you know, improving the outlook of being tired and grumpy before you deal with something that does require your total thought process, right? So, John, just while we're talking about tired and grumpy, and, you know, everyone's been in this lockdown, and, you know, many have worked and many haven't worked, so we're all at different stages. Just because you haven't worked doesn't make it mean that you're not tired. You're still tired because you haven't actually had that mental stimulation, and now you're having to go back and we've got to get people meshed back together. You know, you've got people that are maybe feeling a little bit overstretched and overtired from having worked, to people who haven't necessarily needed to work coming back together. What strategies would you recommend to meshing teams back together?
My own strategy would be to make sure that you build into your work day, into your diary, time for quiet, internal quietness for you. Most people go, oh, well, I'll do that, but they never do. You know, it literally takes 10 minutes out of a day just to quieten the mind down. So here's what I'm going to suggest, and 95% of people will say, I couldn't do this, but we all could. Literally at lunchtime today, first of all, leave this, this is a phone, by the way, leave this in the office, get up and go for a walk for 10 minutes. Now, no boss, no organization, no company can suffer with you having a 10-minute walk. But what you'll find is that without the phone distracting you, and with just by looking at nature, your brain will calm down and it will quieten down and it will soften, and you won't be in ego because you'll be looking out there and going, gosh, that's beautiful. And the birds sound, oh, what a lovely day. You'll be very much more aware, and awareness is the other part of the brain. Thinking and awareness are the two parts your mind does. It's literally just taking time to be away from everything, all the distractions. Don't go for a walk with other people. If you go for a walk with other people, they're going to stimulate your mind to go crazy again. You go for a walk by yourself. Personally, I've found that sport does that for me. I swim, and for an hour. You can't talk to me when I'm swimming because my head's underwater. So I'm basically in my own quiet bubble. And it allows me to calm down and be quiet. And if I can't swim, which I've not been able to of late, then I go for a bike ride or I go for a walk. And it does the same thing. It just slows everything down. I do blame these things for a lot of our challenges because we're just constantly glued. You see people walk into lampposts while reading their bloody phones. Now, what's going on in this world that we can't live without these things? It's crazy. So switch off.
John, you're making me laugh now. I remember when we used to have those brick phones, and I remember crossing. I used to work at agency finance, and I had to go to Simpson Grierson one day, and I remember coming back, and I had this like brick phone, and I was too busy concentrated on the brick phone, not watching what I was doing. And next minute, I was in the middle of Victoria Street, on the middle of the road, sort of doing like you wouldn't believe, like the best split or the wrong split. All because of a brick phone. Did I learn my lesson? No, I still do that. But look, just in terms of John and Dharsh and myself, we might look 25, but we've got another 20 experience on top. So we've each. I know. I was just trying to compliment us for the start of the week, but we've had our own life adversity, and I guess. What I'd like to know from you, Dharsh, is just in a couple of sentences, what brought you into family law? You've got your life adversity, but what brought you to family law?
I guess for me, it has always been. I've always been interested in emotional transition. It's always been an interest of mine. And as I said, I love the law, so the two married really well. And talking about life adversity and what you go through yourself, yes, I've had my shares of ups and downs. I lost my husband a few years ago. We've had a few tragedies along the way. And I think it just, at the time, I thought it was a disaster, and it was horrible. But I guess the positive factor from that is you carry a sense of resilience and a sense of, I guess, what you were saying, John, finding calmness in chaos, which is what you've got to do when you go through those sorts of scenarios. And that's something that I'm hoping that somehow I can pass on to clients as well. And having connections such as John and you, Catherine, it's great to be able to pass people on once you've finished the legal side of things to people that can help them get that, because resilience in this day and age is probably the most important thing you can have. Resilience, and
I would agree completely.
No one can teach it to you. You've got to find it for yourself. So yeah, I guess that to me is the lesson that I would like to spread today, is that concept of resilience. Because in the law, we can accomplish everything that we possibly can for you. Then we set you on your path. But if you can't move from where you were, it's very difficult then to navigate your way on your own. You need to move from the path that you were on before to be able to navigate life on your own. So resilience is a big thing. And yeah, John, you're really expert on that. But yes, I think that's what adversity teaches you is resilience. I know my children say, oh, it's not fair, we don't, it's sad we've lost dad. And I said, yeah, it's horrible, but we were so blessed because we had such a great man in our lives.
Yeah.
And what he taught us was resilience, and they'll carry that resilience forward. So, yeah, I'm a big fan. I know
The biggest skill, without any doubt. It's definitely the most important thing we can possibly learn. And I spent sort of 20 years in this country teaching all the other stuff, the goal setting and the self-esteem work and motivation strategies. And to be honest with you, none of those, they all pale into insignificance next to resilience. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, look, Dharsh, I take my hat off to you in terms of carrying the legacy that your husband, built within your family and carrying that legacy on through your children as well, and just keeping the memory alive. And it's not easy. And I think it's really having gone through loss and understanding, and I can relate to that myself tremendously. And we've had some good discussions on that. John, your profession, I mean, you've been on a few times, you've told people why you do what you do, but it wasn't really just me bringing you out of retirement. You love what you do. You love helping people. What keeps you going in terms of this profession? And also, what makes you toughen up the fact that you know who you want to work with and who you don't want to work with?
Yeah, I think I used to work with anybody, and now I make it not hard, but I make it a little bit more difficult for people to work with me, because what I don't want is people who are sort of dipping their toe in the water. Personally, I only came to this understanding through my own depression. I was suicidal, which is crazy because I've got a lovely life, but I was close to suicide because I couldn't control my mind, and I learned the concept because I had to learn the concept, or don't be on the planet any longer. So I was motivated to learn, and the buzz I get about it is working with those people, but those people who are open to discovering something new about themselves. Because unfortunately, when we're in this ego mood, we don't think anybody can teach us anything. So when we deal with people like that, it's very difficult for them to step back and go, all right, well, help me. Very, very difficult. Why do I do it? Basically to stop people doing what I very nearly did.
Yeah, and John, I really...
That is lovely sometimes.
Yeah, I take my hat off to you. You're so transparent and so real and so raw. And I guess, Dharsh, you and I were both the same as well. When we're talking, all three of us, it comes from the heart. And I've had people say to me, oh, I saw you talking about family law a couple of months ago on one of these LinkedIn Lives. What has that got to do with business? And I said, it's got everything to do with business. Everything. Because what I know to be true as a business advisor is that typically when things are not going well for you in your business, generally they're not going well for your personal life. And if you can separate it out, compartmentalize it, get the right support in the right places, then it really is going to help you build that resilience that Dharsh was talking about. And as John said, you have to be open to it. So look, let's just wrap this up. I really appreciate the time that you've both taken to come on here today. So Dharsh, you've given us a bit of a quote around resilience, but one last quote for the viewers. Why would they come and work with you, Dharsh, at Martelli McKegg?
Well, I would hope that they want to come along and work. Well, first of all, I'd be very sad that they're going through what they're going through, obviously. So, but if they need assistance, yes, I'd be willing to assist, because I guess I have a clear understanding of the law, but I also do believe that your heart guides you in this area as well. And I would work with them in that sense, providing a sort of a holistic package. Yeah, it's work that I love, and yes, I'd love to work along with you in this and feel honoured to walk with you on this journey, because it is a journey. And that emotional transition between starting that process and ending the process is I would hope that you would grow with that. So I'd be honoured.
Dharsh, yeah, that's beautiful, Dharsh. I absolutely love it. And you know, people can definitely see the heart centricity when you talk. It just glows from you.
Yeah.
John, can you compete with that?
No, I can just be honest and say I'm not 25, I'm 67. 67 going on 13. I hope I can tell me I behave like a 13-year-old. It's interesting Dharsh was talking about working from the heart, because that's the opposite of working from the head. And the head is the thing that screws us up. You know, everybody says how great the brain is and how it's not. It's an well, yours might be, but mine isn't. Mine's a mess. And when I try and work from this, I screw things up. But when I work from here, everything goes right. And this is a male speaking here. This is a bit weird, right? So, yeah, you're absolutely right, Dharsh. When you can actually make decisions based on here, you're not in ego, you're helping people. It's a great world that we live in. But when we're in here, it's a shit world that we live in. Weird, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I'm going to wrap this up. I really appreciate both of you coming on here today and your time, giving up your time away from your work and your personal lives. John, you walking, I'm sure you'd be, you know, enjoying a lovely stroll out in the sunshine today. But look, you know, my nana told me many years ago, you know, a problem shared is a problem halved,
Absolutely.
and you know, I've brought along some great people here today. Dharsh, Martelli McKegg, John Shack, they're here to help you. We're all here to help you here at the Engine. I love how Dharsh talked about holistic, because that's definitely embedded in our website. It's the only thing we know about. We don't offer a point solution advice here at the Engine. We offer holistic, and we would love to help you. And right now, there's funding for businesses from the 1st of December onwards. The Engine is actually registered under the new government program to provide support to businesses under health and wellness, and also legal advice. So if you do need help, do reach out to us. Let us into your world. You'd be in safe hands. Have a great week, everybody, and kia kaha and arahanui from all of us here at the Engine. Have a great week, people.